back in 95, it was easy to predict this. Now it's hard to predict where things are going.
I agree. People are nervous, as they should be, because this is evolving so quickly. It's hard to predict what shape it'll take. I also think it's inevitable in a way. Some entrepreneurs can spot a distant problem that they have no familiarity with. For me, I wanted to have felt the pain that we were solving, because if we're going to spend 20 years on this, that motivation is important. If you think about who in an organization cares about customer feedback and customer patterns, it's product, it's support, it's engineering, it's the executive team, it's marketing. And so at Amazon, it was really hard for us to understand what our customers wanted at scale. Software engineers do a lot of different things, but as far as writing code itself, it is really powerful what the agents can do now.
Hey, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's start from the top. Tell me about Unwrap.
Unwrap is a customer intelligence platform. So we help companies like DoorDash and Stripe and Southwest Airlines better understand their customers.
Yep.
We do this by ingesting and reading all of their customer feedback every single day. So for example, Southwest gets lots of phone calls every single day.
Yep.
We transcribe the audio and we categorize all that feedback. And so we can tell them when a given airport is having issues, when something's changed about their website. And so they rely on us to sort of keep a pulse on their customers.
So what's all the places it ingests?
So it's mainly their internal data as opposed to public data, but we do some of that.
Okay.
So it's mainly support conversations. So phone calls, chat, email, surveys. So NPS surveys, CSAT surveys, things like that. And then we do social as well. So App Store reviews and Twitter and Reddit and things like that.
So are you integrating into their already existing like platforms? Or
We integrate with each of those sources directly.
Okay.
So we'll integrate with like a Zendesk or an Intercom or Qualtrics, things like that.
Those are big clients.
Yeah.
Those are big clients.
Yeah.
What was your first big client that you guys scored? Or did you work your way up market?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, we definitely started small. Our first customer actually was a restaurant group here in town. I think they paid us like $20 a month.
Okay.
We now have customers that pay us 7 figures a year. So we've definitely moved up market. But yeah, it's sort of one step at a time. Getting in front of them in creative ways. And then when we have the opportunity, doing a great job of captivating them and convincing them why this is something they have to have.
Right.
And so we email folks, we try and go meet them in person. We do all the things that companies do. And then when we have the opportunity to present to, like a Southwest or a DoorDash, we do a good job and convert on, those chances.
Yeah. Once you ingest this, you're using AI, right?
Yep.
What are you providing? Like, what's that look like? Like that?
Totally. Yeah, there's a couple of things. The easiest thing I think to visualize is imagine a command center basically for all things customer related. And so we can tell you, you have a dashboard that shows what are the top reasons why people are calling us and how has that changed week over week. You can then maybe have trending issues. So is there something new that wasn't here last week that we need to take urgent action on? And then you have a chat interface. So you're able to ask questions in natural language to sort of dive deeper into that. But you have all these different views into what customers are experiencing, and you're able to double click on those and go deeper.
And has that evolved over time? What you thought that would look like and what that looks like right now?
Totally. I think the really crazy thing is that, so we use some of our in-house technology to categorize text, and then we use LLMs to help us communicate those insights to people, write summaries of those issues, and allow them to have a chat experience.
Yep.
the chat experience piece has become way more prominent.
Mm-hmm.
A few reasons why. I think one, ChatGPT came out in 2022 and people are now very used to searching that way compared to Google.
Yep.
And two, the models have gotten so much better so quickly that things that we wish we could empower for our customers even 3 months ago that wasn't possible is now possible. It's taken us by surprise. I think that people who aren't in this space every day don't realize how capable these state-of-the-art models are. It's crazy, and Anthropic is releasing a new state-of-the-art model every couple months, and it's a really crazy pace of acceleration.
Yeah. Is it hard to build the right guardrails for customers to have just complete access to ask anything into these chats?
Yes, totally.
And what's that look like?
Yeah, that's why it's a combination of things that we built in-house and then using LLMs.
Yeah.
There's a few things that go into it. So first off, we redact PII before we ingest data. So what that means is PII is personally identifiable information. To do our job, we don't need to know the name of the person or their email address.
Mm-hmm.
And so we redact that information before it comes to our systems. That helps a lot. You're naturally guarded by the data that we have ingested. So, it's mainly support tickets and surveys. And so you could ask any question about those that you like. But again, you're not able to retrieve customer information. And then the action piece, so when you actually want to act on an insight, that is really tightly coupled and a lot of guardrails, so it can't sort of act on its own.
Yeah, we have some similarities. We're building a product right now called PeakOS, AI native app that helps create alignment, focus accountability for the organization. But we are also really trying to think about the guardrails of that internal information and what some employees might be able to see and what others may not be able to see.
That's a huge thing. So yeah, that's a really good point. Who has access to view that data? I think a good example is, so we ingest, customer feedback for companies. We also help the HR team analyze all the surveys they get from employees.
Right.
And obviously that data, you only want some people to access, not other people to access.
Yes.
So we have a multi-tenant architecture, and you can be very deliberate in what data, is across tenants, and usually no data is. And so that's important to make sure that you have people in the right views of the data.
Yeah. How we're building it is you can only see your team's data.
Great.
You can't see other teams' data.
Yep.
Unless you sit above that team, you can see the team below the team's data. It gets real complex real quick. And I would guess with some of your clients, you've probably run into some complexities with, especially large enterprise.
Yeah. I think, DoorDash is a good example where they have lots of different teams, right? They have the merchant team, like restaurants and stores.
Yep.
They have dashers who are delivering, and they have consumers. Each team has their own data they want access to, their own insights they care about. And so that was really important for us when we started to move more at market, to be able to provision Unwrap in a way where every team gets what they want, and it still works for the entire org if someone senior wants to get access to all of that data.
Yeah. So where did the name Unwrap come from?
It's a great question. I don't get that. I haven't thought about that a bit. We don't get that question very often.
I could make a guess.
Go ahead.
Or maybe I can, steer it.
Yeah.
You're unwrapping the customer experience.
Nailed it. I think that's why we stuck with it.
Yeah.
For full transparency, it was me and my initial co-founder, Ivan. We were looking at domain names because obviously it's hard to get a domain name, and we wanted a domain name that was a word. It had .ai as the extension. Unwrap was available, and immediately we thought of that. Unwrapping insights, unwrapping feedback. I also had this idea of we wanted to make it, candy themed and neon colors and very bright, which would be different for an enterprise SaaS tool.
Right.
Yeah, Ivan found the domain name, and
I like that it's like a action too.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Versus just something that sits there.
Totally.
It's very action oriented to me.
Yep. I think Unwrap also has a lot of positive content. When I think of unwrapping something, I think of candy, presents, Christmas.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. So that helps.
I think it's really cool. So when I started Collective Genius, 2004, I've been doing this for
also
some years.
Good name.
My co-founder and I both came up with a word. As you saw, back, I was in bands growing up, and we'd always come up with a word, and someone else would come up with the word, and you'd say it at the same time, and you're that'd be maybe a band name, right?
Yep.
That's what we did. I had the idea for Collective. He had the idea for Genius.
And you just mashed them together?
And then we were just like Collective Genius. And then we looked it up and no one was out there. Someone said on the .com, of course, doing nothing with it. But we're no longer co-founders. He left the business like in 2008.
Okay.
And the business took a couple different directions over the years. I could have really like renamed Collective Genius probably 3 different businesses.
Yep.
But one thing just kept on coming back that everybody kept on asking me for specifically, and that was to come and help them with leading their annual sessions, quarterly sessions, how to use tools, align their team. And I was doing different businesses all along, but it kept on coming back to that. Where Collective Genius is like
it's broadly applicable. Like you could do different things under that umbrella.
And that's I think why I kept it. But the real funny thing in hindsight is that is exactly like my mindset of like collaboration, building together. It just
100%.
keeps on coming back to that. And I really believe like that's the best way to do things. Yeah. Of course, there's always a leader that has to make the final decisions. Decisions need to be made, but the collective group, I believe, always like
100%.
creates something even better and greater.
I agree.
And it's kind of funny. It's like that mission statement is our mission statement is the name of our company. So tell me, like, let's back up a little bit in your history and like your founder's journey. Like, how did this come about?
Yeah.
Unwrap this experience for me.
There you go. See? So a couple of things. First off, I've always wanted to start a company. I don't know where exactly that came from. I just remember being a young age that seemed like the most exciting thing I could do. And so I was sort of waiting for the right opportunity to do that. My mom started a company, so maybe it was, it was in there deep down somewhere. And I was sort of waiting for the right time and the right sort of me feeling like I had the right experience and learning to go do that. In 2021, I had been in a startup before that. We got acquired, so I got to see that journey, which was really cool. I then was at Amazon for about 5 years.
Okay.
And I was sort of, getting antsy, getting a little bored. We realized that this technology that powered Alexa called natural language processing was growing really quickly and becoming extremely powerful. And we realized that we really wanted to build with this technology. We could not have predicted ChatGPT, but we knew that the ability to process language and understand language was getting exponentially better. And we knew that there's going to be a lot of really big businesses built on this technology. And so that was the bounding box. And then we looked for a problem that, I had personally faced myself. So some entrepreneurs can spot a distant problem that they have no familiarity with and be like, hey, I want to go work on that.
Yeah.
For me, I wanted to have felt the pain that we were solving, because if we're going to spend 10, 20 years on this, that motivation is important. And so at Amazon, it was really hard for us to understand what our customers wanted at scale. And so the light bulb moment was, what if we could read every piece of feedback they submit every single day?
Right.
We'd build the best product.
Yeah.
And so we built a prototype, got good feedback, and decided to leave to go build it.
Yeah, that is so interesting. That's like a macro learning loop.
Yeah, totally.
And I think of learning loops all the time, like within the work that we do, is really aligning teams. And every team that we work with is always growing, and they're doing things that have never been done before. And those, like that cadence of learning loops.
Yep.
And ingesting and digesting and synthesizing and then iterating and planning and moving forward, and that continued process, I think, at a company level, micro from what you're doing, I think is just so important. And I think with AI, I think it's becoming more and more important because things are changing faster. And I think those learning loops probably need to accelerate to keep the pace of what's actually going on.
Yeah, I think the learning loops are crazy. I think that I work at an AI company. I think a lot about the power and the future of what that means with AI. Everything is changing really, really quickly. And I think the people closest to working on, these models and working with the models see it firsthand. But it's interesting to see what's going to happen when, even for people who are a bit out of the loop, how quickly things change. The tooling changes, their knowledge changes. But I don't think, it's hard to imagine a time like this before where there was so much change so quickly.
When I first entered the market, it was the .com boom.
Yep.
So I got to see that. I got to see, what's
crazy
going on. Like I got to see a lot of different things, but there's nothing like this.
And
I think a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, oh, it's just another way. I'm like, no, this is This is the biggest change in the history of technology, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And even if, obviously the internet and the dot-com boom was massive. And if this is even, I think it's orders of magnitude larger than that, but even if it's that large like that, think about life without the internet. So
Right.
this is at least that big.
Right.
And it's happening quicker than that happened. So, yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge and probably fear within people is that it's happening so fast and the knowledge is surpassing us. I think it was pretty easy. Like back in 95, like it was easy to predict this. I knew this was coming. I remember specifically driving in the car and talking about our phones will just have all this stuff.
Everything on it. Yeah.
And people are like, that's crazy. I actually remember working one of the first companies I did was called Gearworks, doing handheld mobile technology.
Yeah.
It was on the Palm One software.
Yep.
On a symbol device that was monochrome, so black and white basically.
Okay.
And I remember the day in the office, somebody's like, eventually everybody will have a computer outside the office. Of course, right?
Yeah.
Like define what computer is, but like
Totally.
that seemed strange 30 years ago. That
100%.
seemed like really like, what did that even look like? But now it's hard to predict that. It's hard to predict where things are going and it's accelerating so fast.
Yeah. I think it's hard to predict because it infiltrates like all parts of the economy. I mean, if you think about today, even who's using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini, it's basically every profession.
Yep.
It's hard to predict what shape it'll take. I also think in part it's inevitable in a way. Like I agree, people are nervous, as they should be because this is evolving so quickly.
Yeah.
And I also think it's partly inevitable. Like we already have, we have these smart people working on these problems. They're making progress. Like at this point, I think the train has left the station.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how do we put in the right governance and safety to make sure that it goes smoothly. But
that's exactly right.
Yeah, like people who are like, oh, it's time to stop development. Like I think, or stop research. One, I think that never works. Like in any technology trend, like there's sort of a inevitability to it. And once it has momentum, you can't really stop it.
Now you're building an AI product and integrating that into large enterprise companies. Are you building internal AI tools? Are you buying tools? How do you make the decision on something like that?
It's a great question for us as a company, but also folks that are considering buying really any software today. It's like, why, I have Claude Code. I'll just build this myself.
Right.
Yeah, I think, so we're fortunate to work with one of the foundational model companies. I can't name the one, but they are one of the most advanced companies in the world when it comes to AI, and they chose to partner with us really because they realized two things. And this is how we think about this internally. One, it's typically more expensive to build. So if I'm going to go build an AI product, I need to go take one of my engineers who makes, a decent salary, and maybe it's 2 or 3 of them away from what they're doing to go do this, build it initially, and then maintain it. And so it's not like a one-time cost typically where you build a tool and move on.
Right, right.
Everything evolves, and so you have to maintain it. And so it's easily $1 million in just headcount.
Yep.
And then the second thing is to take their team and do this thing, which is not their core competency, means that they're not doing what they're best in the world at. And for us, this is what we're best in the world. This is all we do.
Yeah.
And so it's usually cheaper, and we want to trust the experts, and people, if they're looking at a tool like this, trust us. That's how we think about it internally as well. If there's a tool that is going to be way cheaper than us building, and this is all they think about, we're happy to buy it because, again, we can focus on what we do best.
Yeah. And so many of those tools are $20 per month.
And it's like, exactly.
Right.
Like, to take an engineer a few months and then, again, they get paid when it breaks, it's usually never worth it.
I mean, I'm very optimistic where things are going with AI. In the product that we're building too, we're building it based on a methodology that has, decades of experience behind it. And there's so many nuances to like aligning teams, setting goals from vision to execution, specifically in the execution piece where things are moving very quickly, cross-functional teams, like to try to build something that we're building without the, like you said, experts, like that actually understand the nuances. It's completely unpractical.
Yeah, it's very hard. And again, there's things that your organization does better than anyone else. You should spend time focusing on that.
Right.
And when you're building this product, what can you do that is unique to the development of it that, again, other people can't do?
Right.
Yeah.
What would you say that in your space specifically, and maybe just AI in general, that's what's not being talked about that's important?
I think it's maybe what's being talked about depends on who's talking about it. I think what I've found most interesting is that people who spend time in this space are pretty clued in. That's a small group. And then anyone outside of that, I think, is very oblivious to what's going on. My parents, no offense to Rob and Joy, but, it's just really hard for them they don't spend time in this world. And so for them to think about what the world's going to be like in even 5 or 10 years, I think is just, it's going to be very unexpected.
Yeah.
And part of that is worrying because, I see, for example, some of the phishing emails or phone calls that I get.
Yes.
And I work in this space. I'm like, wow, that's really good. Like I'm not going to click on that, but
Yep.
it almost got me. The parents and grandparents out there, like it's that's just one aspect where they're unaware of what's possible, and it's going to be challenging for sure.
Yes.
100%.
100%. When I get ones too, I think the same thing. Like, what if my parents got this?
Totally. And it would, not be good.
And the corporate ones are even worse
Totally.
because they can be very damaging.
Yeah, we have new hires that start at Unwrap, and the first day they'll they'll send me a Slack like, "Hey, did you send me this email?" And I'll be like, "Hey, Jim, I need you to text me immediately with your password." I'm like, "No, I did not send that."
Gosh.
It has has like
Yeah.
it says my name and all these things. So I think that's just part of it, where the being unaware of what's possible today, Justin, that's in like crime and phishing, but that applies to a lot of other parts of the world as well. And so I think the gap between people who are using the tools and knowledgeable versus not is the gap's gonna widen pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah. I got a question for you.
I'm ready.
I've done some interviews before, none like this. How did you come up with this format? It's kind of like what is it? Comedians and driving in cars getting coffee, I think. Yeah.
That's
Was that inspiration, or did Jerry Seinfeld copy from you?
Jerry Seinfeld totally copied this
Yeah.
format. I've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
Jerry called me up.
Figured.
It's like, hey, I want to drive around with GoPros.
Are you okay with that?
Where should I put them? Jerry's like, hey, I've been watching all your shows, just trying to figure out where you sit your GoPros.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I can do the exact same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's story, but in reverse. Exactly. I always tell people, yeah, it's just like comedians and cars having coffee, but we're not going to go get coffee, and it's not going to be funny at all.
Yeah.
And I'm also not driving something cool like Jerry.
Yeah, it's true.
Um,
Besides that, though, it's the same.
yeah, almost exactly. I've always liked video. I grew up in a super entrepreneurial family on all sides. I, like you, there's something I think like being a founder is more of a calling. Like there's a lot of easier things we could do. But for me, it was really a calling. And then for me, it was like a calling of like, how can I help all these other founders solve difficult problems, which I think is most difficult thing to do is scale a company.
Yep.
It's so incredibly hard, and it takes everybody. And so I've always focused on that, but I'm also like a constant learner. I went to school for entrepreneurship and finance, been in a lot of different companies, played a lot of different roles in startups.
Yep.
And it's all been driven by just learning. And so I did the show, one, so I could talk to cool people that are out there actually doing it, but then to help them like share their stories.
Yeah.
And I think that we don't have to learn everything the hard way. We're going to learn enough the hard way already.
Yep.
But if someone can like listen to something that you're doing and go, wow, like I can just leapfrog something and miss that.
Totally.
I think it's really cool.
Yeah, that's
valuable. I like video. I like doing this. And so that's kind of like how it evolved.
Have you leaned into some of the AI tools related to video editing? I know it's still pretty nascent, but yeah, has that changed how you do things at all?
Early days, I was editing because it was fun. Now I have a team that I just have to put the cameras in the right spot and hit play or record.
Yep.
If I hit play, that'd be a bad problem. And so they've been doing that. And then they have been upgrading, definitely like using more AI and like stuff like that. In a good way, not too cheesy way.
Yep.
So no, I used to do city to city. So I had Chicago, New York, It was more like my take on Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, going into a city. We'd drive around, eat at places, all that.
That's cool.
Just like that, but not cool at all, like Anthony Bourdain. And then I'd have camera people following us doing all that.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun. It was like logistically a nightmare though.
Yeah.
So
plus you're traveling. Yeah. Do you mainly do them near where you live in LA, or do you?
Right now I am, just to make it easy.
Yeah.
I just do exactly what we did. So find cool people that are in the general area, figure out a location, pick them up, film and go.
Yeah.
But we're looking to do San Francisco and do something a little bit more harder than that in the coming months.
Yeah, driving around there sounds challenging.
And yeah, exactly. New York too. Very difficult. Yeah. Very difficult.
Crazy.
All right. So really curious for you going into this is your first startup and you guys have been growing significant. You got product market fit, you got like enterprise clients. What was like one big like aha to you, or maybe something you just never would have thought would have been true going into this? Maybe you thought we're going to do this and it was going to work, and then that didn't work at all. It was like the opposite. Yeah. What was like kind of like one of those big like learnings?
Yeah, a couple of things. One was pricing. So I think when you start something, it's hard to imagine anyone paying for it.
Right.
And we have customers today that pay us millions of dollars a year. That seemed really crazy at the time. I remember an interview with Spencer Skates, who is the co-founder CEO of Amplitude, and he was talking about their initial pricing because with any SaaS product, your margins are pretty high, and it can be hard to figure out. It's not what it costs to produce it; it's what customers will pay for it.
Right.
And he said that he just doubled the pricing every couple months for a number of years, and you naturally will get pushback and you'll sort of settle into your price. But it can be pretty uncomfortable to say this is what this product costs, because you know better than anyone where it works, where it doesn't work, some of the quirks of it.
Right.
But yeah, that was really helpful just to have the confidence to be able to raise prices significantly.
Yeah.
Because of the value that we were providing. So I think that was a lesson that at the time to, have this pricing felt odd. But
is it per user per month, or what's the pricing model for you?
It's based on how much feedback we analyze for them. Okay. So number of calls or support tickets or surveys per month.
So a package.
Yeah, you have tiers. Yeah. So if you get 500,000 a month or $1 million a month, you have tiers. It's intentionally not seat-based because if you think about who in an organization cares about customer feedback and customer patterns, it's product, it's support, it's engineering, it's the executive team, it's marketing. So we don't want any friction in having more people access to Unwrap.
Right.
So I think that's one on the business side. The other one, again, I think is the first time that our engineers got access to is GitHub Copilot and Cursor and Claude Code, where you ask, your prompt to write code, and then it just spits out code. And at the beginning, maybe it was bad and needed more work than it was worth. But now it's
incredible.
It's incredible. And I think that coding is, in a lot of ways, software engineers do a lot of different things, but as far as like writing code itself, it is not solved, but it is really powerful what the agents can do now. And that was a huge kind of light bulb moment.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. That is the thing about all the companies I've worked with over the years, and how much it cost to build the products that they were building and how long it took.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I still feel like we're not building fast enough, even though we can build so fast. Was there a point in which you felt like the product was, you were comfortable at where the product was at? Or do you always find yourself like, oh, I just wish that we could get these other things done?
There are definitely periods where you finish a good, really big sprint and you want something big and you're like, wow, I'm really proud of what we built. And I think this is the product right now as it exists is great.
Yeah.
I think that period of sort of like satisfaction with what you're doing are more fleeting because the bar is being raised so quickly. And again, I think because of the pace that people can build their own things. Other companies are building things. The bar has never been higher, and it's growing it's raising really quickly. And so our chances to sit back and be like, wow, this is great, are more and more fleeting.
It's hard.
It's very hard, but it's fun. And, anything in life that's rewarding is hard. So that's why we do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. I have one last question for you.
Yep.
Most important question I've ever been asked on any interview ever. So it's good that you're sitting down. It's more of a scenario.
Okay.
You're trapped on a desert island the rest of your life. You have food, you have water, you have everything that you need except one thing. You have no entertainment at all. But luckily for you, an old 80s boombox drifts ashore with unlimited batteries. But you can only bring one album to listen to of any genre, any era, one album to listen to the rest of your life. Ryan, It's a
great question. I have a playlist on Spotify, which is just like my favorite albums.
Okay.
And I feel like today with Spotify or Apple Music, people just bounce around a lot. They don't go through the album.
Right.
So you gotta think of that list. What is the number one?
I stumped you. Like, you answered every other question I had for you.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with, it's a shorter album, which is hard because I think it's only 45 minutes. So if you have the rest of your life, you're gonna play it a lot. But the first Alt J album, I don't know if you're familiar with Alt J.
I'm not.
Okay, I gotta send it to you.
Alt J?
Alt J.
All right.
It's called An Awesome Wave. It won a number of awards. It was one of the most unique sounding songs or albums I've ever heard, and it was really good. They have a really good song called Breeze Blocks that you've probably heard before. That's mine. What's your answer to that?
It changes all the time.
Yeah.
Changes all the time.
That's not fair, though. You gotta...
I know, and I'm heavily influenced by other people. But since I don't know that, like, you didn't influence me at all, and I'd probably have to since it's an island, I'd probably go with, like, Bob Marley.
Classic.
Yeah, something.
Yeah,
Bob
for the rest
Marley.
of your life, that makes sense.
Yeah, and you don't want something, like, depressing.
No.
Even though it might be good,
Yep.
like Pink Floyd, The Wall. I don't know if I would want to listen to that over and over again.
No.
But yeah, I'd probably go lean towards some sort of classics, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
give this song a listen on the way back to LA and let me know what you think.
I'll do that. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It was fun.